beneficiary of some of the activities that you have been leading. We are now exporting to Namibia our soap and some of our oils going through into that market. So commendable job there. However, I just need to maybe encourage you to continue to assist companies to in the area of just getting some of these niche. I think the Mozambique one was very successful, but we haven't managed to crack the logistics. I think somebody just mentioned the previous speaker. Angola as well, the southern part of Angola. You access it through Ondangwa in Namibia, and you go up into Angola. It's a big market. Once you can get into some of those warehouses just on the border with in the south of Angola, the whole of Angola can be yours, because then the people pick it up and take it up to as far as Luanda. So these are big markets that are worth maybe revisiting. I know you open up and you move on, but I think there may be need to just relook at some of the issues. With Angola, the challenge also is the logistics part. In other words, moving a product, say from Harare or Bulawayo, into those markets. So I think we would need to have partnerships with logistics. You know, as a single company, yes, we can do this. Somebody will say, well, you know, you're United Refineries, get on with it and do it. It's just, it doesn't quite work to penetrate the market. Second stage, yes, you can manage it on your own and create your own relationships. The market penetration phase of an export market requires pooling, and it requires, you know, a body such as yourself bringing us together with somebody in biscuits, somebody in Davipel, in snacks, and we're going in as a group so that, you know, on a 30-tonner, we are able to get that 30-tonner into those markets. So I just wanted to encourage you to deep dive and a little bit more granular. I think you'd add a lot of value to manufacturers, and to increasing the percentage of value-added exports. Whilst I celebrate horticulture, it's still primary. We end up producing for it's okay for them, but I think we need to look at also manufactured value-added exports, because that's where we're going to see real value being captured by the economy. Thank you.
Similar, that was an excellent presentation, and it's great that Zimtrade is pushing for export. But as a manufacturer, we certainly need to be looking at retooling, better retooling. We could export a lot, and I think it goes for a lot of manufacturers. I think Basiso will agree with this, which he said time and time again. We need access to some funding, not free funding. We will pay it back, but we need access to funding for 10 years or 15 years at low interest rate. We don't want it for free. We just need to upgrade our plant and equipment, and we will then take on, we'll take on South Africa, no problem. But we need financing urgently for upgrading, and Zimbabwe will be on the map. Thank
you. Thank you very much, Similo, for your presentation. I think I was very encouraged hearing that you've also signed memorandum of understanding with the universities, and I also saw recently you signed in MOU with the Horticulture Development Council. I think mine is to encourage that maybe a similar approach is needed with industry, where we are able then to segment the export development requirements of industry, because we notice that some of it is really, you're going all the way down to product development, but maybe other companies don't need that. So if we get into an MOU with industry, then we are able to segment and identify what the needs are in the different sectors or in the different sizes of companies we are working with. And also segment the markets, you know, where the issue is logistics, like has been mentioned, then the support that is expected of Zimtrade is to actually address that logistics issue. And where the issue is actually creating new markets, then it be that, so that we have a demand-driven approach that is more that would deliver the expected results for industry. But maybe we will discuss again a little bit later. Our next speaker is now waiting online. I don't know if you can bring them on. Okay. Hello, Christine. May you unmute yourself?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Christine. I'm the representative of the International Council of Swedish Industry, and I'm really happy to be invited and honored to be invited to your meeting today. As the previous speaker said, now we'll have a little bit of a historical sort of reflection on how Swedish business became very competitive. I'm opening my PowerPoint here. It seems like it's going very slow, but I hope to be able to open it so that you can see. Maybe someone needs to push something as to allow me to present. If you can look. I'm really happy to be revisiting Zimbabwe. When I was at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs some 25 years ago, my first business trip ever was to Harare, and it was a wonderful experience, and I met wonderful people. I'm really happy that you're all meeting up to cooperate, because as you will see in my presentation, if it opens up, collaboration is one of the key points between industry, but also between industry and government agencies, government and the civil society. Is very important for competitiveness. It seems like the presentation does not want to open. Don't know what to do about that, really.
We can see it from here, Christine. We are on your first page. Yes.
Yes, you are. I can't see it myself. That's very strange.
So you can try moving the arrows on your computer, then I'm sure the slides will move.
Yeah, the problem is that I don't know where I am. Do you see this?
We are just seeing the cover page, the title of your presentation.
Okay.
Try unsharing, and then you can share again.
I will try. It worked splendidly when I was rehearsing for this event. Otherwise, I'll just do it verbally, okay? Because a PowerPoint is not essential. It's just for memory anyhow. It seems like it's not working. So what I'll do, I'll just do my presentation verbally. So in order to frame the topic, I would like to give you a brief retrospective of the factors that made Sweden transcend from one of the poorest countries to one of the most innovative and international countries in the world. There's a Swedish saying that goes, necessity is the mother of invention. And this quote pretty much sums it up. Only a century ago, Sweden was a country of poor peasants and immigrants. And from the end of the 1800s until 1930, 1.5 million Swedes, a quarter of the population, emigrated, most of them to North America. At the end of the 1800s, Sweden was one of the poorest countries in Europe. Industrialization changed this dramatically, and in the course of 50 years, Sweden became one of the richest countries in the world. Record economic development was strongly tied to the building of railways, providing access to natural resources such as the forests, the iron ore, the hydropower in northern Sweden. Assets that are still considered the traditional basis of the Swedish economy. This development is often referred to as the Swedish economic miracle. With the small population, referring to what you are talking about today, with a small population and a small domestic market, we are not even 10 million today in 2021. Sweden needed to innovate with a view directed towards trade and exports from the start. And of course, today your discussion how to make value of the new free trade agreement in Africa. I think it's one of the best news that I've ever heard last decade. I think it's great. And I think it's really intelligent to start trading with your neighbors. Then eventually there will be niche products or art or fashion, etc. You will be exporting internationally as well. Anyhow, going back to Sweden, Sweden has like industry at heart. That's what Sweden is. We're an industrial country. And it has been for centuries, as I mentioned. And it was actually the innovative and successful industrial companies of Sweden that laid the foundation for the whole country's prosperity. Industry and industrial service companies account for more than 70% of Sweden's total export value and creates jobs for about 20% of the working population. As a small export-dependent country, globalization has a decisive influence on the economic development in Sweden. And our country's future is even now determined on how well our companies succeed in leveraging new opportunities and meeting the global market's changing needs in a competitive way. So a small country, big export. With only 0.13% of the world's population, Sweden has managed to create surprisingly many multinational industrial companies. The key success has been innovativeness and the adaptability to change, which has made it possible for many of these companies to stay competitive and grow on a global market for centuries. I will mention some companies because I had a slide of this, but I can't show you. But considering how small the population is, it's surprising how many how large the number of multinational export companies are and brands. So many were founded during a period of rapid economic development in the first half of the 1900s, including Volvo, AstraZeneca, ABB, IKEA, Ericsson, Electrolux, H&M, Saab, and Absolut Vodka. Today, Sweden's most important exports are machinery and transport equipments, wood and paper products, chemicals and plastic products, industrial machinery, electronics, telecommunications, and services, but also minerals and heavy vehicles. And the basic industries, steel and paper production, still account for 20% of the export income. The majority, around 68%, however, comes from mechanical engineering industries. So Swedish industry has become increasingly research intensive and is characterized by a high level of technological development. There is a strong belief in the power of cooperation and co-creation in Sweden. And this is something that I think is one of the success factors for how the Swedish industry has been able to stay competitive for the last century. So what we believe in Sweden, and I think that's true whether or not you ask someone from government or from industry, is that cooperation between countries, industries, academia is a prerequisite for success. And we have a lot of collaborative initiatives that accelerate, for example, these days, the digital transformation of industry and society. Well, right now, we're in the midst of an industrial revolution, which again puts industry's innovative thinking to the test in order to meet the global challenges that we face in common, notably COVID-19, climate change, and the SDGs. It's even more important that industry deliver. Let me see. So this transformation that we're seeing now is driven by several forces. It's the globalization, of course, the digitalization, and the transition to a green, resource-efficient economy. And this creates new opportunities, but it's also a threat for those who don't manage to adapt. So what does the future hold for Swedish export? Well, I believe that knowledge-intensive industries such as IT, biotechnology, and biomedicine, as well as environmental technology, are expected to grow in importance. But we also see a race in the creative industries, design, fashion, music, gastronomy, and here I think that Africa has a lot to give in the decades to come. Sweden has experienced some sort of a creative revolution over the past decade, and it has attracted worldwide attention and produced substantial new export income, for example, in the gaming industry. Tourism is also of relevance, of course, for Sweden, but also for an attractive country like Zimbabwe. What we see now is that globalization is reshaping the conditions of industrial production. So the technological development is constantly altering the circumstances under which the industrial sector has to compete. So it has shrunk geographical distances and created opportunities for new products, processes, and business models. It also has opened up new markets and created opportunities to break up production processes in increasingly small constituent parts to spread these around the world in order to benefit from the various competitive advantages of different locations. So production now is largely linked to global value chains. The coordination of these takes place increasingly with simplicity, except during COVID, where we saw a lot of disturbances in the value chains. But the digital solutions are being developed very rapidly. This is the result of a tougher global competitions, and I think the Swedish industry have been very capable of benefiting from the advantages that they already had. They've been specializing to even greater extent in the production chain, but still being able to maintain competitiveness. Location has had a major significance. Some knowledge is not restricted by national boundaries, while what is known as tacit knowledge is often based on experience that has a strong basis in local or regional networks. I've been talking about digitalization a lot, and as you know, this has taken a great leap during the pandemic. Even us now having this conversation, it's a revolution basically. I studied a little bit before entering into this meeting, and I saw that I think you have a digital penetration of 25%, which is a very good number. So digitalization opens the door of a whole new world of possibilities. Where this development takes us, we cannot yet predict, but I think that those who don't jump the bandwagon will miss the journey to the future. I think it's very key to invest in this kind of infrastructure. It will affect all aspects of the companies. It will affect product development, manufacturing methods, logistics, customer relations, and other areas. And the result already appear in the new form of new products, processes, services, working methods, and business model. While the production and products have become smarter, everything is connected, everything is sort of connected, and digitalization is increasing the interaction with customers and members of the public, while placing also new demands on companies and opening the door to completely new business models. So sustainability is something that seems to be well, it's key for the climate agreement, but it's also something that is increasingly important for both sourcing and delivering exports. Globally, there's a need for innovative, resource-efficient, and environmentally friendly goods and services. And in order to meet the growing societal changes. This can involve major business opportunities. The global demand for environmental technologies and recycling technologies becoming greater in line with the increasing urbanization and continued environmental problems, particularly, I think, in regions like Africa. I think this transition to more sustainable production will be important to Sweden's chances of achieving the goals that the governments have set up, becoming the first fossil free welfare state. But I also think that it's a very good opportunity for countries with natural resources like Zimbabwe. There will be extensive need for minerals in order to reach the climate goals. And anyone who can sort of extract these minerals in a very sustainable ways will be able to take a piece of the growing international market. So sustainability is key in the production chain, and it will be, and it will only become more important. I mentioned collaboration. I mentioned that I'm happy to see you all gathering in Harare today, because collaboration is a prerequisite for this competitiveness that we've seen in Sweden. And I think it's a basic foundation of what Sweden believes in, the power of cooperation and co-creation. And I think it's both a historical sort of reflection of why we became competitive, but also sort of a map for the future, that we will have to cooperate even more. We see that a lot in Sweden, where, for example, now there's a project called PIM, Pilot for Industrial Mobile Communication in Mining, where Boliden, Ericsson, ABB, RISE, ASIC, Volvo, Wolf, Telia, etc. worked side by side to push the limits for state-of-the-art new mobile communication technologies within heavy industrial mining environment. And this is just one of many initiatives where actors in Sweden come together to explore and speed up the digital transformation of industry. So what were the key success factors for Sweden? Well, I think that and this is historically and currently, I think that basic infrastructure is extremely important. Energy, transport, of course, railroads, as I said, education. It's very often forgotten in Sweden that one of the key factors for Sweden being able to bounce back after Second World War was that we had quite a large number of the population having educated themselves. Back then it was by letter, people in the countryside getting good training and then being able to fill spots in the industry. I also believe that this openness to trade has been a key element. When we develop a product, we always think about, okay, we need this for our domestic market, but who else would need it? So we think already about exports when we innovate new products. Another key success factor in Sweden is labor market stability. We've had a long period of rather or relative peace on the labor market, which means that we rarely have strikes, and we have a model where the Confederation of Swedish Enterprise has an agreement with the National Labor Union, where they set the salary levels and they negotiate a lot without government interference, which has made it quite stable and peaceful in the Swedish labor market. Another one, of course, is management of natural resources. You know all about that. You have a great deal of natural resources, but it's a very key point. Another one is the high rates of computer, internet, and mobile penetration, which I think is something that is very smart to invest in. Rule of law, of course, Sweden has reliable and efficient institutions. We've also had quite a stable financial market, which helps us a lot, and collaboration. Another point, I saw that you were discussing innovation earlier today, and I think that research and higher education are other key factors. I'm going to wrap up. I can't see you properly, so I'm going to wrap up, but I wanted to mention just briefly a couple of initiatives that the government has taken the last, I think, 8 years or something. They've developed something that was quite interesting. I was myself a part of doing it. It was that they, together with industry, they designed a strategy for trade and investment, which was really important. So they sat down and they thought, what do we have? Where should we go? So short, medium, and long-term strategy for investment. They also created something called Team Sweden, which meant that the government authorities, for example, Business Sweden, our export credit agency, etc., were put in a team. So they were given the mandate and the mission to cooperate in order to enhance competitiveness. There was also a third initiative that was quite important. It was the design of a new industrialization policy. And this was, of course, also done in collaboration with industry. The last one that I would like to mention, since you were discussing innovation previously, was the Prime Minister's National Innovation Council, where he gathered actually everyone around the table. So in order to exchange knowledge of cooperation on how to contribute to better conditions for innovation, he gathered a group of cross-sectorial policy development actors. So it was representatives of public sector, academia, and business, and it was a challenge-based approach. And they then looked at which policy areas needed to be reformed or changed in any way or calibrated in order to foster a climate of innovation. So they would be areas like research, regional policies, labor policies, public procurement, it's very important for innovation, environment, transport, health, digitalization, industry, and education, etc. So they looked at it horizontally, and I think that was a quite important approach. Yes, it feels like I'm speaking into a void, but I hope that you were able to hear some of what I said. I would be prepared to take any questions. We have 5 minutes left.
Okay, Mucha, maybe just before you come in, I don't know, Christine, if you can hear me. I think
yes.
One of the things we would have wanted to hear is around how the International Council of Swedish Industry is organized as international business. Because in Zimbabwe, we are looking at the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, and looking at lessons on how business can get together to tackle the continental market.
Yes, I can answer that. Well, the equivalent of you is the Confederation of Swedish Enterprise. So that is not me. I'm from the International Council of Swedish Enterprise, which means that we only represent internationally. So there's a Confederation of Swedish Enterprise that represents 64,000 companies in Sweden, and they are organized in sort of subsectors. So you have sort of the association of the industry, the technological industry, and you have for the service industry, etc. And they basically focus most on national policies and laws and the competitiveness. For example, now they are focusing a lot on the access on energy in order to maintain competitive. And they also, for example, higher education or technical trainings, etc. That would be their sort of core focus. But they also, of course, organize themselves to be able to partake and influence the trade negotiations that take place. In the case of Sweden, that happens through the EU. But it's like a whole machinery of negotiations that take place. When it comes to exports, how to sort of plan for the exports. In Sweden, it's done by a government agency, we could say. It's called Business Sweden. They are our export promotion agency, and they are in charge of coordinating the efforts towards international markets. They also have offices in different countries, and they work sort of on the it is the government that gives them the assignment on how to work. That's why I mentioned the government strategy for trade and investment, because that's where sort of the the actual strategy is the what is defined by the government, and the how is defined then by Business Sweden in collaboration with the actual companies and industry. I hope that was an answer to your question. But I think it's very good if you could sort of sit down, have all the smart people in the same room, and design the foundations of an export strategy.
Thanks, Christine. And I wouldn't worry, you weren't speaking into a void. We see you clearly. It's worked well for us. We can see your presentation. So thank you for that presentation. And indeed, thank you for your willingness to share. It's appreciated. My question is the relationship between academia and industry, specifically around innovation. Is that organic or is that deliberate?
It's both. It's both. In Sweden, I have a slide on that too, but I don't have it right now. But in Sweden, research and development is funded both by state and by the companies. So in the budget of your typical Swedish company, they will have quite a high percentage also going into research and innovation. We have something called, that's why I was going on about collaboration. We have something called the triple helix model. So the triple helix model of innovation is where you cooperate between industry, academia, and government to solve problems. How is then funded? What would be the government? Many of the Swedish inventions from way back were actually a result of a public procurement. So the state needs to solve something, or you do a public procurement for a hospital, or you do a public procurement for something else. And then you sort of develop the innovation, the product or the service that is needed through that sort of iterative process that innovation is. So it's a combination. Sometimes it happens by itself from bottom up, and sometimes it happens more as a concerted effort, like with the Prime Minister's Innovation Council, National Innovation Council. Then he felt that this needed to be more structured because innovation is more important than ever. I also think, I must say, if I'm thinking about Zimbabwe, I think that a lot of the sustainability challenges that we have now actually can give countries like Zimbabwe an edge, because in many, if we talk about desalination of water, we talk about off-grid electricity, we talk about many of these things that are urgently needed, the solutions don't exist, which means that it's a big possibilities for countries like Zimbabwe to actually work together with innovators, with young people, with entrepreneurs and industry to sort of come up with solutions for tomorrow that then could be interesting for other countries as well. But maybe I can come back and talk about innovation. I'm passionate about that some other time. Looking at your speakers list, I see that you're headed in the right direction. I believe you're discussing the right topics, and I wish you good luck and keep going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you very much for your time. Did you want to say something, President? Sorry, the president of CZI wanted to make some comments, if you can take.
No, I just wanted to follow up on the innovation strategy that you talk about. From the Swedish setup, is this driven from the university linking up with the industry, and obviously with the collaboration of government, or it's an independent body that is spun off from the university, then it works with the industry that way?
It's a very relevant question. It's a very relevant question because a lot of the people that I talk about in many countries, they think that innovation is mainly from university, which is not true. In Sweden, you know, some innovations come from people that have never even set foot at the university because they just, you know, for example, we had this incredibly rich unicorn guy who made Minecraft, if you heard about that. He has never, I don't think, been in any university. No, what one has to remember is that it depends on the financial flows, right? So so a lot of it is sort of the companies, industries sort of funding research being done by academia. And the other part is academia doing research that can sort of turn into new products, etc. The government through to academia. So it's like a two-way. It has like two sides. But I think that innovation can. When you talk about innovation, they usually say that you need sharp brains, but you also need a little bit crazy people because you need that person that actually dares to think way out of the box. Why the Prime Minister arranged National Innovation Council is because he. What we have in different ministries is that you know, they just stick to whatever they need to deliver upon, for example, higher education, and they don't take co-responsibility for the you know, what's hindering innovation, to eliminate hurdles, etc. So what he needed to do was to gather all the relevant ministers in the same room with industry and academia to sort of have a council that was sort of set a well-balanced strategy. So that's how they did it in Sweden. Yeah, I'm sure the embassy will be able to tell you more, and I'm happy to send any information that I have to CZI. But it's a very good question, and it's done in many ways. Thank you very much. I am a little bit late for my next meeting, but I wish you good luck, and happy to revisit Zimbabwe again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine.
Hello, while I have the mic, I just wanted to ask this. We have got 55 countries in Africa, and with this AFCTA coming in, can you not help us by coming back with a proper mapping to say, in South Sudan, for example, these are the potential products that probably that market requires, or to Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire is set up like this. This is the product that they want to eat, so that we just don't go blindly those territories. Bring that information back to us, assist in terms of planning that will be, and then get that product from Zimbabwe into Kinshasa. Not, I need to set up in Kinshasa. Kind of thing. Thank you.
I think we had not given Samilo a chance to answer, so maybe he can respond to that and the earlier submissions as well.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think my first comment, I think there's a saying that says that future belongs to those who will be able to connect the dots. So that's the most important thing, I think, when we're looking at issues to do with the African continental free trade area. And from the discussions that we have had, I think the issue of logistics is one of the key issues where we have to connect the dots. As Zimtrade, as CZI, and also as a country. So what we've done as Zimtrade, we initiated a study on what is it that we need to do as Zimtrade first and also as a country in terms of our exploration of the AFCFTA market. So it's a study that we've received the report, and I'm sure we should be able to share that report with CZI. And also in terms of mapping each country, what is on demand, we have that information at Zimtrade. We should be able to share it with you. We'll start by sharing the information where we have conducted market researches, which is more practical, where we would have gone to that market, really tried to find out what is it that they buy. We've visited their retail shops or their hardware shops to see what they buy, what are the prices, how do we compare. So all that information, we have it available. But where we haven't been able to conduct a market research, we should be able to try to get with, there's an ITC-based tool that we usually use, which is called TradeMap. We should be able to get part of that information, but also, as we all know, in terms of our parent ministry right now, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, there is a deliberate approach towards issues to do with economic diplomacy. So we have got our embassies where they even now have got targets to do with finding markets on our behalf of our companies. So we should be able to work some of our embassies in these countries to make sure that we get that information on your behalf. I think the issue of logistics, most of them has been comments of which they have been taken, and as Zimtrade will try our best to work with you in terms of mapping the best routes when it comes to your export markets. Because one of the key things, it's a matter of also us trying to find out who is taking what into Zimbabwe. I remember there was a time, I think we used to get mackerel fish, was it from Namibia? Now those trucks, what were they getting back to Namibia with? So those are some of the questions that we believe need to start looking into, whether they are return loads, what can happen with those return loads, can they lower our cost in terms of taking our goods to those particular markets, especially markets like Angola that Mr. Moyo has mentioned. We did a market study in southern Angola and also northern Namibia. Opportunities are there, big opportunities, but what we need to do now is to map the routes. We have been in engagement with some logistics companies to find a way of which we should also be getting back to CZI and its membership in terms of updating on the best routes to use. But also, you find that in other countries, I don't know whether there is a possibility or it's possible. There is issue of it can be a tax incentives. I know I'm not very good in terms of taxation purpose, taxation issues, where there could be a tax incentive or a tax deductible. If you are looking at other markets like Angola, South Sudan, whereby just like the market development incentive, whereby if you use, say, is it up to $5,000 US to explore export markets, when you are now doing your tax returns, I think it's a tax deductible. For me, I believe that if it's possible to have a tax deductible that is related to logistics, whereby maybe it can be a 20% reduced, say, 20,000 on your logistics, taking it to, you have that deductible that can assist you in terms of lowering your cost, in terms of taking your goods to these markets that are a bit far away. The other comment was on retooling in terms of funding facilities. I think there was a mention of a 10-year facility. I think both CZI, Zimtrade, and all BMOs will continue engaging relevant authorities in terms of these facilities. I know at one time there was the DMAF, was it specifically for Bulawayo? I think after that it was also Harare companies benefited. I'm sure it could be a facility that can be done. As I mentioned, that export manufacturing sector, export competitiveness facility that is offered by South Africa. For me, it's a good facility that can assist our companies. We don't need to copy it. I know we might not have some of the funds, but I think the professor in the morning said you can copy certain things. Copy, then you adjust it to our own needs and also capabilities here as Zimbabwe. Also to Sekai, I think it's a good, I think it's a welcome discussion between Zimtrade and CZI where we can sign MOUs, strictly say what is it that we're going to do. As Zimtrade, when we are signing these MOUs, we believe more on the implementation plans. We can sign an MOU, but what are the implementation plans thereafter? What are the timelines to do certain things? So I'm sure there will be further engagements after the Congress to find a way on how we can come up with an MOU between Zimtrade and CZI. I think from the questions that I had, I've answered most of them. There was one on issues to do with currency. I'm sure that one I will not touch much on it. I know it's a subject for discussion. It's on Friday. So I will not comment on it, that one for today. I think on Friday, I'll also make sure that I'm here to also hear the discussion in terms of the way forward. I'm sure it's relating to the tensions they are exporting. So I'm sure it should be an interesting discussion we have on Friday. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Similo. I think with that, we will come to the close of this particular session. And one of the things I picked was the thing about Team Sweden. I think it was a takeaway, looking at how private sector organizations can work with the intermediary institutions to create a competitive environment. So breaking those silos, I think, is another area of collaboration that we may need to pursue. I just have a couple of announcements before I hand over to our MC. One is that you are all welcome for a cocktail and dinner tonight for networking. And also to say that on Friday, on the Policy Dialogue Day, security is going to be very high. It is important that your names are on a list, on the list that is going to be participating in the meetings on Friday from the morning. So if you have colleagues that may not have come today, but are planning to come on Friday, we would kindly ask that you also notify them that their names would need to be on that list. We do have ZFN outside doing interviews, short interviews over drinks. They are called the Friday Drinks Guys, and they want to talk to business people that may be willing to interview with them. Please feel free to have a chat with them. They'll be broadcasting these interviews about what is going on here and our general views about the economy, industry going forward. I'll hand over to Patrick for details.
Well, thank you so much, Sekai. I think you've pretty much covered it. It is essentially to do with the cocktail this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So once again, you are all welcome. And the starting time is 5:30. And we look forward to seeing you. And just a little bit about the ZFN guys as well, is that it is a light-hearted take on what we've had. So please don't go there expecting a formal interview. What they really do want is your personality and your perspective, essentially. So don't feel you have to rehearse. It is what you might call a contemporary take on journalism. So we hope that you enjoy it. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think it marks the end of what I'm sure you, and at least I'm hoping you will agree, has been a very useful day for all of us in terms of interaction and indeed generating the sort of ideas that can move us forward, as indeed we try to do so for our business and our private lives. So we thank you for your participation once again and are looking forward to the continuation in the cocktail at 5:30. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
In 2018, ProPlastics embarked on a new factory equipment spanning on an area of 5,300 square meters with a total construction cost of $7 million. The custom-made design would facilitate the following. The raw material storage in the form of silos with a consolidated capacity in excess of 900 tons. Automated mixing plant with a maximum output of 35,000 tons per annum. The plant was designed by proudly Zimbabwean ProPlastics engineers in partnership with Italian material handling design giants Penta Piovan Group. The technology is the first of its kind in Africa. The mixing plant alone carries an investment of $1,600,000 in equipment. The main extrusion plant has a capacity of 6 PVC lines and 3 HDPE lines with maximum outputs of up to 32,000 tons of finished products per annum. The plant houses state-of-the-art extrusion equipment produced by world leaders in the extrusion industry. Through all this impressive investment, ProPlastics will consolidate its position as the market leader in the piping business. ProPlastic distributes its products nationwide and exports to the Southern Africa region, as well as all the way up to the DRC. ProPlastics, pipe systems that last. In 2018, ProPlastics embarked on a new factory equipment spanning on an area of 5,300 square meters with a total construction cost of $7 million. The custom-made design would facilitate the following. The raw material storage in the form of silos with a consolidated capacity in excess of 900 tons. Automated mixing plant with a maximum output of 35,000 tons per annum. The plant was designed by proudly Zimbabwean ProPlastics engineers in partnership with Italian material handling design giants Penta Piovan Group. The technology is the first of its kind in Africa. The mixing plant alone carries an investment of $1,600,000 in equipment. The main extrusion plant has a capacity of 6 PVC lines and 3 HDPE lines with maximum outputs of up to 32,000 tons of finished products per annum. The plant houses state-of-the-art extrusion equipment produced by world leaders in the extrusion industry. Through all this impressive investment, ProPlastics will consolidate its position as the market leader in the piping business. ProPlastic distributes its products nationwide and exports to the Southern Africa region, as well as all the way up to the DRC. ProPlastics, pipe systems that last.
Feeds is a manufacturer of stock feeds, and we have different types of feeds that we produce, ranging from poultry, which is your broiler, your layer, as well as your breeder feeds. And we're also doing pig feeds, cattle feeds, that is for your dairy and your beef. We also have dog food, and we're also doing horse feed, goat feed, and we also do pig feeds. So these are all done and produced at our plant in Willowvale, and they are distributed amongst our over 45 retail shops across the country. Our feed gets to the commercial farmers, to the medium scale as well as the small scale. So the small scale are our backyard farmers. These are people doing birds or point of lay birds ranging from 25 and above, and we are providing their feed. We also go around to give a very strong technical support, whereby we go around training them and we visit them just to make sure that they are using the feeds correctly. So as a business, we have also now ventured into fertilizer manufacturing, and we've got a company called NutriMaster, which is doing all the fertilizers that are required. We also have vaccines. We also have agro equipment, or your poultry feeders and drinkers, drinker lines, everything that you need. What we've tried to do over the years is that when one walks into a Profeeds shop, he is getting everything that he needs under one roof. To assure the quality of our products, we've got systems in place that will help us track the quality of our raw materials as well as our finished feed. So as raw materials are coming in, we take samples and we test in our lab using our NIR machine, and then as well as inline production checks, whereby we've got a team always checking on the production. So after they've done all the production, before any feed or any product goes out, again, it's taken to the lab just to check and to make sure that the quality is right. Our production system is automated, and this really helps in trying to eliminate human error, and also just to ensure that whatever we are doing is tracked and is on the systems. We use the SCADA system. It is a software, and that will help us just to track and to keep the records of what has been done. Just in case we want to follow up, we are able to do that, to follow up every batch.
This is our intake process, where we load our raw materials. You can see in these 4 bins is specifically for micro raw materials such as carcass meal, blood meal, corn gluten, and also limestone flour as well, and MCP. And then the other big storage bins here, that's for our major raw materials such as solvent, low fat, maize, wheat bran, and other raw materials. We've got a lot of raw materials there. So we normally load our major raw materials in those big storage bins. Then in terms of labor, on the loading of raw materials, on intake side, we only have 2 guys to load the raw materials, and we've got 6 guys on the bagging offline. And then operator, you only need 1 operator in this control room. As we are producing our feed, we monitor the quality of the product from the raw materials as we received the raw materials from the main gate to the raw materials storage site. And then we monitor the quality of the raw materials to the intake site throughout to the bagging off site. And then we do routine checks on our finished product. Hourly, we check the quality of the product as we run our feed.
For every feed that is produced, there is always a reference sample
Ndapona basa. Chiweza yeye dawo. Makonektor hata zvino aoneka. Kanyora. O ese matamba. Ha? Okay. Sekunharera mararamu matera. Koyo itanoona na mhando. Yes, iwo ndo ane fani. Inza fota vamhando tinzogaro. Ko andina fidya. Mabhisa connector iyi app paprogram. Chingokonekta iri kubva apa chingoisa paprogram pa 2. Unoona isa chero direct mangwana mozoita chacho. Zvandingoda ndezvokuona kuti signal ndiriona. Halo? Muchiriko? Asi mama autobikirwa sitii. Oh. Oh. Oh, kusvika kwedhorobha maro. It's flexible conjugate. Alright, bro. Out. Abo, Dex ari kuweko. Saka chi? Asa zvinoita.
Chanongotipa pa mic ye mic rero. Akatuka.
Mic sera ruma zera. Akatoka zvi. Ane zera zera. Mic sera, chingomaita so. Maite tudika, twarongoyora kuti 1 2 3 4 5 6 tichidzika. Then apa obvaita apa obvaisa machakuita. Hanzi rapedza. Saka zvaroona kuita. Iwo handi mota mako hamuna chauya chiripo. Ukangoita kuti zvikonekitike zvakaita because handi mix yanenge iri pasi. Wati hamuna. Saka iwo pasi. Then warova pasi toona kuti kana apedza. Kwamakore handifungi kuti kuchiri kuendeka. Handisi kana ari kuda kupfuura neko. Munhu apfuura nekwamakore. Ubva iwo batidati munorara. Saka munhu wese afana kungarara. Angopa nguva yekuda kuzorora zvekuma 6 latest. Then tikadaro mangwana nguva yakuya kuseni tolodha matv muvhani. Then tolodha matv muvhani. Then I think matv yacho iona mbehama ndingatadza munoita matv. Munoita matv. Saka mangwana mune makuita matv. Saka uri safe because matv yacho ada kusetwa zvanene. Saka zvazvima safe. Mopeka molodha mosika zvekuma half 8. Zvazvasvika zvahalf 7. Ama mupeka. Kunoku maybe kana zvapera. Because chiuya chacho chinotanga na 12. Cheko. Setup tanga na 9. So I think na 9. Then ungopuwa zvinhu zvacho ungotesta. But it does all. Pane imwe vision mixer iri Roland. Iri? Roland. Tora Roland. Roland ngaigara. Then in to organize and look by organize and don't know. Organize, I don't know, but no, this man, yeah, going to ine zvinhu zviri kutaura saka tikayani manu ala bozile nei Hapana zvidi. Hatitopwanya-pwanya zvinhu tingangoti tikapedza zvekuti totopwanya-pwanya ruzvi. Ndinobhukura komana Harare ndinoda kumbotora mutsvaka zvetetenasi ndoita zvekugadzira moto. Samarati tipedza nako tobva. Isiri Roland. Roland yakaita chimwe chadapta chitori nyika. Figa 8 tora apa panenge figa 8 ngere. Tora wane. Nani? Sa uko kunaenda manu unonzi anonzani. Vamandu nani ngiri. Na koti changu kunaenda vamandu na deki mativi. Rome andifone. Ndipo ma headphones. Makamera eso ndisiro paanzi headphones. Sama. Man. Magetsi manje. Yeah? Ayo ende na. Mangani. Ona tipo. Enda akona but nozo. Yeah, isi akambodonzeka yema godezi. Yeah, no mugara chaitest. Man, sitambo zvinji. Anonzi no Roland. Roba. Ndruda chini is set up yone chingotora handi yana battery. Yeah, usati abisa. Connector ngirikini. Connector itori iba. Yangotarisa ku. Yatarisa kubodya. Yeah? Chingwesa SDI. Akona sa excellent. Waiza? Iron. Ndinachini. Man. Ndiziro input ka. So. Ye camera i. Chingotra ka HDMI kari pa SD. Ndiraona kuti tikadhila inosinga here. Saka ndirati iri kubva pa converter SD. Uisa pa channel number 2. SD converter room. Tamberu baba bo isa ba number 2. What? Где баji? Где баji? Number 2. Chakabaga richi converse hachina. Hachina ndo. Tambo yacho iro. Tuibaira. I think inge report, you know.